Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
I mean, I'm not going to give a long introduction for this because, as you know, we all know each other. But since this is the first episode of IMK Baad, and we are all IM alumni for the last 20 years, and many of us have met one to one, some of us haven't. But then, with the advent of Zoom and WhatsApp, we've had great discussions even online. Um and in the last few years, we've realized because of that, that distance is not important anymore, and we've discovered a plethora of other social networks, some of which we use, some of which are probably for the younger generation. um, Without naming, we decided to enlarge our social circles, not just to the people we know, like the three of us, or for the next 20 or 30 that we know very closely, but also people we would like to know and speak with, and people who might benefit from our thoughts, or just want to amuse themselves with some listening to light-hearted banter of people like us. I must tell you that we'll probably get more dad jokes here than true humor. So be forewarned. Don't complain later. But see, we are calling this the first episode because while we are recording this, we hope to come back again every weekend and discuss more topics that are of interest to us and hopefully to other people like yourself. But first thing first, shall we start with a bit of ourselves? Shall we start with Vix? Do you want to go forward with a 1 minute, 2 minute introduction of who you are and why you're here?
Sure. Thanks, Mix. So, it's been 20 years that we left the campus, and uh, these 20 years have been wonderful, like more exciting, more adventurous than I could have ever imagined. And as I get older, I just turned 46. As I get older, there's a automatic reaction inside me to want to give back and want to connect with the wider world and the wider community. So that's why I'm here. We have a I'm Bangalore WhatsApp group, and I posted there saying that, hey guys, let's do a podcast together where we can talk about our experience with the wider world and help other youngsters like us and help others. And that's why I'm here. I think it's the right transition in my life. I think it's the right time to want to connect with the wider world, wanting to give back to the community and so on.
Very good, Vix. Thank you. And yeah, I think all three of us share that passion about connecting with each other and with the wider community. What about you, Chow?
Hi, thanks, and Vix. Definitely share the sentiment that Vix shared. The last 23 years since we passed out from IMB in the year 2000 has been an amazing journey. I myself have worked across multiple industries, multiple roles, multiple continents, and none of that I would like to change. And there's so much learning that I have amassed from there. I really want to share parts of that with the wider world. A lot of interesting stories and anecdotes to talk about, and of course, learn from other co-panelists that we hope to have in the future.
I'm sure we'll get loads and loads of those, especially. I really want to start with Ranthambhor, but maybe we'll pause on that for a bit and all the other animals and that you've been going through. Uh, but first thing first, we are sitting on 29th of December 2020. And the one thing that people do at this time of the year is look back at the year. And most YouTube channels at this time will be doing what's my recap, what's my biggest story. And I know we are on our first episode, but why not do with one big story? What do you think is the biggest thing that happened that affected your lives or generally the world's lives and continuing to do that in the next months or years. And I'll start with myself. Um, I'll also give a brief introduction. Firstly, so I'm Migs. I obviously graduated from the IAM. That's why our channel is called IAM K Baad. Um, I've been a venture capital investor for the last nearly a decade and used to be in private equity buyouts before that. And before that, I used to be a strategy consultant. And before that, I used to be in consumer marketing. And before that, I used to be in IAM Bangalore. So, yeah, did a lot of things. As they say in Hindi, काफी घाट का पानी पिया hai. But at this point, sticking to one thing, which is investments in early and mid-stage companies. And for me, maybe because of my uh, closeness to that, for me, the biggest story of this year has been AI. We started with generative AI on ChatGPT 3, then 3.5, and 4, and then during the time we also had Bard, Copilot. We had the top management drama in OpenAI. We ended the year with Google Gemini. And Vix, you've been close to that also. You're sitting right in the heart of Silicon Valley. Uh, would you agree, or do you have another top story of the year? What's the biggest impactful thing that happened in this year?
Sure. So, Mix, I think generative AI is definitely top. I think there's something else which I think is right there, and that's the coming into our social consciousness, the GLP-1 medications. What I'm hearing in Silicon Valley is that what GLP-1s are doing, like, Ogivy and all these medications that people who take to reduce weight or to control their diabetes. See, what happened is that in the last 30, 40 years, industrialization put a lot of things in front of our eyes that were not easily available. Like we are not used to dealing with salt and sugar and fat being so easily available in front of us. We are not used to dealing with porn being available in front of us. So what GLP-1 medications are doing is that they're working on our impulse control. And I've seen a lot of friends do better with their addiction to cigarettes, to alcohol, to food, to porn, all these things with the help of GLP-1 medication. So I think obviously these medications have side effects, right? You lose some muscle mass, and they're not something that they become a lifelong medication if you need to stay on them. But I think our brains were not designed for the impulse that the industrial age is throwing at us. I have myself many times just sat in front of the TV and started eating the salted peanuts because they were right in front of me and they were yummy, and the industrialization put them in front of me for $3 a packet. And so my brain is not designed to overcome that impulse. And I think the class of GLP-1 medications, I think they came into our social consciousness this year. I was at Walgreens recently, and there were 4 guys ahead of me, and everyone was there picking up a GLP-1 medication, and people were paying $500 a month out of pocket because insurance doesn't cover that medication use.
I'll quickly interrupt you. I know a bit about this, but for our viewers, what is GLP-1? What does GLNP stand for?
I do not know the full form of GLP-1. What I know is that they help our body produce some hormones in our gut or in our liver, and what that does is that it somehow helps us control our impulses. So I don't know how it works, but it seems to help us control impulses for cigarettes, for alcohol. It's not only for food. Yeah.
Got it. And Chow, what is your biggest story of the year? What do you think has impacted and will impact the world?
I think ChatGPT generative AI has been one of the biggest stories. The fact that it just took everything by storm. Apart from the people who were very closely associated with it, people did not really see it coming in such a big way. And hitting 100 million users in about 2 months is something which demonstrates the impact of it. I believe, yeah, I'll talk a little about that, but I also want to add that post-COVID, one of the things which has majorly happened in the world is mental health coming to the forefront from being a relatively nascent undercurrent need to becoming a more visible need. As they say, there's a very good quote from Frederick Douglass. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So that's one space where across the world, a lot of work is happening to kind of develop those psychological strengths, build stronger children than to repair broken men. But coming back to ChatGPT and basically generative AI, I think the way it has emerged is just the beginning. Newer models are emerging, and the way we see the impact of LAN network, basic computing, and so on. Maybe within a year, it will be so much of a part of everything around us that we probably won't be talking about it as something special. So that's how I am looking at it becoming so pervasive in our life.
Perfect. So we have 2.5 stories between us. That so there is AI, generative AI. There is GLP, and we have an implication of AI, but more specifically on mental health that we think. I mean, in and I think that's a huge canvas, and I know for one, I've spent years thinking about each of these separately. Partly because I've been around the mental health framework, what's happening, irrespective of AI. That is the positive part of mental health is that people are discovering that it is part of health rather than just physical health. But the negative part is no one knows because we have a few years of work in mental health. All our work, at least as far as I'm aware, for the last 60 years, um, or the big piece of work is about medicines given to reduce someone's pain or enhance someone's physical feelings in whatever sense, and nothing to do with the mind. The closest that comes to the mind are drugs. Some of them legal, some of them not so legal, and especially I think there's I don't want to go into this just now, but I believe there is like a bit of a drug issues in the US especially that is currently being grappled with. Um, but let's come back to the more common thing about generative AI. I mean, we've got. I think Vix, you already use Gemini, or what are you using in AI right now? What is the
Sure,
big thing in AI?
sure. So, you know, over here in Silicon Valley, what people are realizing is that uh, we get paradigm shifts once in a lifetime. But our generation is lucky to have experienced multiple paradigm shifts. We experienced the computer paradigm shift in 1990s. Then we had the internet paradigm shift in the 2000s. Then we have the mobile paradigm shift. Then we have the social paradigm shift. So computers, internet, mobile, social, and now we have the AI paradigm shift. This is a defining moment in history. And most people in the world have not absorbed the idea that the artificial brains that we're able to make on the computers now will have a bigger impact on the world than internet did. Now, a lot of people who will be watching this show have not even experienced a life without internet. Youngsters, 20-year-olds, they grew up, they were born after the year 2000. They've not experienced a life without internet. But for oldies like us, who have experienced a life without internet, internet changed everything. And I feel generative AI is going to change everything once again in the next 5 years. And it's going to have a huge deflationary impact on the economy. Mix and I, we were having a discussion yesterday on how when the machines came in the industrial age, they took people away from, it was the physical labor people who were affected, right? So I think, Mix, you mentioned that when the word processor got invented, a lot of typists lost their jobs, right?
And that was like the starting, the what you call the start of the white collar workers,
Yes.
right? You would probably term a typist as the start of the white collar, someone who's not doing physical labor except with their fingers.
Yes. But this time, with
Machine
Gen
age
AI,
was the coal miners, the diggers,
yes.
those people, and now it is
Yes.
here.
Now this time, this time it's coming for the boardroom. This time it's coming for the analyst. Mix actually had a great idea yesterday. Mix, do you want to share that? How you wanted to use Gen AI to feed them annual reports?
Well, I don't want to give away my idea, except I get reminded that ideas are dime a dozen, execution is important. So I'm still executing this idea, which is how do we get venture capital uh, being done partly through AI. Now, we're not going for decision making through AI. What we are doing is, can we feed in something similar to what has already been attempted in public markets, where analyst reports can be created to give buy or sell recommendations. Now, that's not fully done yet. It's in process of an evolution, but as far as I know, it's not really been implemented in VC or in private equity, where can you have um, 10 meetings with a startup founder, use all your notes, and even those notes being AI generated summaries of your speech to text conversions, and then convert that using publicly available information about the sector, about those companies, about those founders. Everything nowadays is on the web, uh, which manually I would typically include as part of my due diligence. But why should I spend my time doing that, uh, racking up my time or an analyst time, when an AI can already do that, then put it together. And now here's the generative part of it. Can it give me a 5 pager or a 10 pager investment recommendation, which I can take to the IC investment committee? Now that's what I'm working towards. The reason I'm working towards this, here's a big thing, is I'm looking at a new age VC fund which does not have a pyramid structure. It has only decision makers. And all the hard work is being done by machines. So white collar, brain power, but of analysts. What this will do, if I were to be successful, and if others like me, I'm sure people are trying this across the world, is it will take away the need for a lot of analysts. It might not take away the need for partners just yet, the VC partners, but it will take away the need for analysts and associates, and call them whatever you will.
So, Mix, what's your opinion about, we expect you to go to the campus and hire our juniors from campus, right, as analysts. And now you won't be hiring them because you will be giving this work to the artificial brain, to the machine brain.
I think that will
think
evolve.
that affects?
I think that will evolve. People will still be hired. That's my view of the overall landscape. And I don't have a full answer to what will happen in 5 years from now. But as I see 6 months or 12 months from now, and apply it to this scenario, I'll still hire. Instead of hiring an intern to or an analyst to write the first cut of an investment committee recommendation, or to Google search, or basically search for a background, do some initial due diligence, what I might be hiring the analyst for is someone who is adept at doing the right words for a GPT-4, or the right phrases for GPT-4. I think that is an industry that's starting to come up. Is everyone's got GPT 4 and Gemini and this and that but not everyone gets the same output sitting on the computer. So that is
another
one
dimension.
Yes,
That's a very important part. And I believe now we also have this concept called hallucination, which is coming up in the context of generative AI. That the kind of answers you get are a strong function of how you are phrasing the question. And a lot of times it may just be a totally wrong answer. If you rephrase the question, you will get a different answer, and so on. So it's a very interesting use case. And part of my thought is that it depends on what is it that you are solving. I mean, where you have things where you require a human expertise, like you were saying, bringing the case to an IC, for example. There's a lot of work that happens before it comes to that stage. And that is something which can be accelerated in a big way, can be streamlined. But it still requires that final human brain to act on it, decide on it. Similar use cases we see in the credit underwriting. You see it in, let's say, in the healthcare sector, in mental health, and so on, where a lot of groundwork can probably be done by ChatGPT and similar LLMs, but the final decision making, you still require that human expertise to kind of take the final call on it.
At this time, that's the big thing, isn't it? At this time, you need.
At this time,
maybe in 6 or 12 months, you still will need, but will you need that human overlay for a final decision making in 5 years? I don't know if I know the answer to that.
Yeah, we don't know the answer to that, and
We
that
don't know
is
the
scary.
answer to that. Yes.
Yeah, and that is so. For some of the people who, we started using the word Gen AI and we started talking about it. So I think for some of our audience who doesn't know about Gen AI, so I'd like you guys to think of Gen AI as a brain on your computer. It literally works as a brain on your computer. And a lot of you will be surprised to know that the logo that you see in the top right was actually generated by AI. Mix and I, we sat there and we told the AI, give us a logo. And we said, some keywords about our podcast. And I think it did a great job generating this logo.
And I will just add on to that, what we were talking about. It's how you phrase the question. What are the GPT prompts or the AI prompts that you give? And Vix, I must tell you that I've seen a lot and I thought I was good, but the way you phrased those questions was, I've not seen better.
No, investor guy is being humble, and that has been his trait for 25 years that I know him now. I met him first in 1998, Megs. So you, I think you were there. I think we had a much more complicated logo before, and you said that Vix, we can't have this complicated logo. We need 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, and that was the change that I literally told Gen AI that, hey, give us a logo that will work good on 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, and it came up with this. So I think that was a very key input. But one thing that I want to point out, and again, this idea comes from my discussion with Mix yesterday. Mix is not going to go on campus and hire, instead of hiring 5 analysts, he'll probably hire 2. And Chow, with his company, instead of hiring 5 employees from campus, he'll hire, say, 3. But what's going to happen with the people who are left behind, who are not hired? Now they have an artificial brain on their computer. They will be able to do things that they couldn't imagine doing earlier. For example, it is entirely possible that a year or 2 from now, we have somebody sitting, I think, in Dharvi, Mumbai, in the slums, and making a whole feature film. Because he will use the Gen AI as the artificial brain, writing the storyline, making the visual effects, making those characters. So I think so. And to be honest, this is something which I got influenced a bit recently when I saw there's an interview of Shekhar Kapoor from last month,
which I was seeing on the web about, and he was asked this question pointedly, and he said, "You don't need a rich dad to make a movie anymore. You can do all this yourself, sitting, whether in Dharavi or whatever, with limited means." And to me, it sounded quite like what Google did 20 years ago, as is sometimes called the democratization of information.
Exactly.
And AI could possibly do democratization of execution.
Yes. Or
Okay, I just came up with this. Sorry, I just came up with this.
No, but this is good. Democratization of execution. It's a good mix. By the way, to people who are listening in, Mix was the marketing guru of our batch, right? Chow, would you agree to that? Like, Mix was the guy who was the marketing guy.
Marketer in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I must say, I never thought back then. Forget thinking about being in venture capital. I never thought, or I didn't know what was venture capital. And there were a couple of guys in our batch who I won't name right now. We'll hopefully get them on our show at some point in the next few episodes. But who went to interview with a then up and coming venture capital fund. And this was 25 years ago, 23 years ago, and I was like, seriously, why are they going out of campus to interview with these people? I mean, what do they do? I mean, come on, get into some bank, get into some top level HLL, PNG. I mean, that was my outlook. But then, as they say, humans evolve. I've evolved a bit slower, but I have to.
Yeah. But what I want our audience to understand is, what would you do if you had a brain available on your computer, and that brain was as good as the best filmmaker, the best logo designer, the best physics thinker, the best chemistry thinker, the best biological thinker? So now you have a brain that's as good as the best biological thinker, the best physics thinker, the best chemistry thinker, the best storyline writer, the best logo designer, the best music creator. What did you do with this brain that's available to you? So what I expect to see happen is that there will be a huge deflationary pressure on the economy. Prices of everything should come down. The price of intelligence, the price of lawyers should come down. The price of doctors should come down. And we will see people, passion becoming more important. Your internal desire to do something become more important. I'll give you guys an example. My daughter is in grade 1. And what I am trying to imbibe in her is curiosity, wanting to do something. How you do it is going to become much easier for this new generation that's coming up with the artificial brain. So, if one thing that
would you say this, Vix? Would you say this? You were mentioning the best doctors, the best this and that. You have that on your computer. Are we there yet, or are we going to take 5 years from now, or would that be 25 years from now? I'm pretty sure. I'm confident that it will be there. May not be the best, but decent, good enough.
No. So, Mix,
but how long do you think this will take?
Yeah. So. I don't know if you, most of our viewers, I'm sure not have watched it, but I did a Twitter Spaces back in, I think it was May. It has like 1.5 million views. And in that Twitter Spaces, I gave a demo of a co-pilot for the doctors. And what we saw in that demo was, it's very fundamental. I hope I can get this idea across. What we saw in that demo was that the artificial brain does things 1,000 times faster than the human brain. So when you give a human brain 20 pages to read, the human brain would take an hour to read those pages, comprehend and make meaning out of it. And if page number 3 has some inconsistent data from page number 19, the human brain will find it very hard to find that inconsistency and come up with a conclusion. It can do it, but it will find it hard. When we gave those same 20 pages to GPT-4, you know what GPT-4 said? And that was the first time when I had goosebumps. The hair on my skin rose up. And I think that was the reason why that podcast or that Twitter Spaces was shared very widely. It said that on page 3, you say this person is very depressed. That's the clinical observation of the psychiatrist, that this person is very depressed. But then on page 19, you say that this person took a depression rating scale in the lobby of the psychiatrist's office. It's called a PHQ-9, where you ask 9 questions on the patient's depression over the last 2 weeks. Questions like, have you been suicidal, and so on. And it said that the score on PHQ-9 is only 3 out of a maximum of 27. So it said there's a huge difference between what the clinician is saying and what I'm seeing on the PHQ-9 scale. And I can't, and we need to look into it and reconcile this difference. Now, could a human have done it?
I mean, if it can be done, I'll be amazed, because that's what's required.
It was done. It was done. Like that's what the artificial brain came back and told me, and that's when I had the goosebumps, because when I had other clinicians read that, they could not come up with it. Not because they are not as smart as the artificial brain, but there's a difference in the speed at which we operate. Our biological neural network, and we can talk about what the neural network is. Our biological neural network operates at a specific speed, but this digital neural network is operating at 1,000 times faster speed. It takes the biological neural network an hour to read 20 pages, comprehend it, and make meaning out of it. But to the digital neural network, it took 30 seconds. So you get a lot of advantages just because of speed. So I hope I can get this across. The human brain is still better than the biological brain is still better than the digital brain. But just because the digital brain is 1,000 times faster and it doesn't forget what it has read, it is able to do things that the human brain is not able to do, at least in the medicine co-pilot startup that I'm working on.
I think that's because the digital brain doesn't have to think about putting dishes in the dishwasher, having a shower, those kind of things. And that's also true. We've got personal lives, family lives, and then things start getting muddled up. But one thing I don't want to lose in this, I think we should, and I haven't seen your Twitter Spaces, so I will make it a point. You send me the link, and we'll also put it down below for any viewers who want to watch that and get more context on this. But let's move on. I mean, you're talking about this stuff. I'm sure, Chao, you've experienced this in your line of work. How do you use AI in your startup?
So there are multiple use cases. I think the key concept that Vix mentioned is basically being able to triangulate different data points for consistency, whether they are making sense or not. And you see a lot of contradictory data points which emerge, being able to even identify, highlight, or someone to kind of oversee, make sense out of it. The way we are using AI in our startup, in our space right now, there's a lot of early detection of suicidal ideation and so on that we do. We work a lot with the student population. They share a lot of their internal thoughts in our system by way of journaling, by way of various tools that we make available to them. And the system is able to kind of analyze that, use specific keywords, identify patterns, and so on, to identify students who are potentially moving to a verge of hopelessness, and make help available to them proactively. One of the things which we have seen, especially in the mental health space, is that there's an expectation that someone will come out and seek help when they require it. And that's one of the paradigm shifts that we are trying to make, as to how do you make this available to the quote-unquote normal population, and then show them, make help available to them, make support available to them, and not make help or support a bad word. in their context. So bringing it to them uh, when they need it much earlier than when they realize they should seek that help.
and
That's
and,
one
and
of the
that's
applications
I'm
of that.
pretty sure that's a huge market in India. I mean, how many students do you have in India? I mean, just purely given on the population, you'll probably be looking at a market of what, 50 crores?
More than that, more than
More than that. And how does so Vix, you were talking about what you're doing using AI to put that. Do you see any fit, even at a high level, how your solution could fit into Chow's solution?
No, I think Chow is a very understated guy. I think uh, the the mental health epidemic that Chow is addressing, he's addressing like every family has a mental health issue, and just because there's so much stigma associated with it, we don't talk about it. I think Chow's addressable market size is over like 10,000 crores. I think every family in India has someone with a mental health issue, and just in a family of 4 people, if one person is going through a mental health issue, it affects everyone around him. And obviously, I like the work Chow has done to work through the stigma, where he's making it easier for people to talk about uh, their mental health struggle, And I think the other thing we have to realize is that this generative AI, our initial hypothesis was that people will not want to talk to AI about their mental health issues, right? Because they want to talk to another human. But when we did a pilot study here, what we realized was that people want to talk about their mental health issues at 1 a.m. in the morning when they can't go to sleep. Or they want to talk about their mental health issues over the weekend. And you can't have another human available 1 a.m. in the morning or over the weekend. So having a generative AI co-pilot on the other end, which can talk to you and work with you. There was a hackathon here in San Francisco where I had presented a, a digital brain being the therapist and people interacting with the digital brain over text messages, and it actually won an award on that hackathon. So I think if Chow was to say offer a WhatsApp number that people can add to their WhatsApp, and when they cannot go to sleep at 1 a.m. in the morning, or they're facing say jealousy problem when it comes to their girlfriend, or they're facing anxiety, depression, or they don't feel energetic during the day, and they can start talking to this phone number. They can start texting with this phone number, and if this digital brain then flagged, it's out of 10 people who are talking with this digital brain, it said, okay, these 2 people need human intervention with medications, in-person therapy. I think knowing Chow, I think he could build it into one of the biggest businesses in India or worldwide. I feel like because it's a paradigm shift, internet gave us Microsoft. No, sorry, the PC world gave us Microsoft. The PC paradigm gave us Microsoft. The internet paradigm gave us Google. The social media paradigm gave us Facebook. And the mobile paradigm gave us Apple, right? The Apple iPhone. I think this digital brain paradigm is going to give us companies like PeakMind that Chow is running, which will become the a mental health provider on your phone number, on your WhatsApp.
I think so. I mean, what we do need, however, is slightly better interior internet in India and in the UK. Definitely, I have to say, because we were having a bit of audio issues with when Chow was speaking, and that wasn't because of anything else. But since our viewers don't know, because he was in Ranthambhor doing hopefully not some hunting, but just some watching earlier in the day. and I mean, it's remote enough for us to justify why, but I'm glad that he made the show. But moving on, how about you tell us what you saw over the last couple of days of a semi-holiday that you've taken? Did you see any tigers?
Yes. So I was lucky to be on one of the zones. Yeah. So the park is divided into 10 zones. And just so you know, the National Wildlife Act prohibits any form of hunting, at least in the wildlife zones. So, but it was very wonderfully crafted. They have divided the park into 10 zones. You book a safari into one of the zones. It's your luck what you are able to spot. So we were able to spot a tigress. She has had 3 cubs recently. Of course, the cubs were not with her, but we saw her pass right 2 vehicles ahead of us crossing the road. So that was an amazing sight. We also saw
Awesome.
an eagle.
And which other
An eagle
animals
clutching.
did you see? Anything that we've never seen?
We saw an eagle hunt a snake. So, right, clutching a snake into its talons and just flying into a tree and sitting there devouring the snake. That was an amazing sight
Wow.
as well.
Yeah,
Of
thank
course,
you,
Did you
Chow,
take
for
any photos?
yeah,
Yes,
thank
yes.
you,
Did
Chow,
you
for
take any photos?
Yes, we did.
yeah, yeah, thank you, Chow, for bringing it up. I think India has just like Mix is sitting in London. I'm sitting in suburbs of San Francisco, and I think India has just so much to offer to the world. And Chow is right now in Rajasthan, but he lives in Bangalore. I don't think we ever ended up saying how geographically dispersed we are. But I think one thing I hope Chow does is showcase like these wonderful places that there are to visit in India. It's just India has so much to offer. I really think that this is the next 25 years are India's years.
I think so. I think we are in the space where China was 15 years ago,
Yes,
and it's but natural that no economy can continue that long um, to grow and grow at like 6, 7, 8% growth. Uh, the great thing about India is that India is only at the start of that phase.
yes,
And there's one thing which reminds me. There was a thought that I think we briefly discussed in the last couple of days is why is China and Chinese economy, why is it plateauing, or possibly as people say that it's not plateauing, it's actually degrowing, but they're the figures. And my first thought to that was, if China is a completely export economy, everything that I see from clothes to shoes to food, and not to food, but yeah, most of the things is in China, made in China. I'm sure it is even more so, as much so in the US, and uh,
yes.
quite not, maybe not as much, but a lot in India also. And then, if all these economies, except for India, all the Western economies, they are at flat, partly because of whatever inflation, interest, etc. But the demand has stabilized or plateaued. Wouldn't the Chinese economy, as a result, plateau? Where will they sell? I mean, India isn't getting more or increasing the Chinese economy. They're building an economy of their own. So where will China sell to?
I think Max, there's a big geopolitical element to this. What has happened is oil was a big thing for America, but America recently has become the biggest oil producer. So till the time oil was a big thing for America, America needed to make this world work with each other. So it deployed its navy, it made sure trade happened, it made sure oil kept flowing from Middle East to America, and to make that happen, it had to allow other goods and stuff to follow. But I think now America wants to disengage from the world, and America wants to because it has all the oil it needs. And anyway, I think solar, geothermal, wind energy production, I think was is like 30% in America now, and don't quote me on that number, but somewhere there. So I think one of the reasons for China plateauing is that it has to figure out internal demand. It has to figure out the internal market to consumers. It cannot look outside for consumers. There is there's a lot of initiative in America to produce in America now, and I think I only see that increasing. And with the digital brains, I expect that we'll be able to put the digital brains in robots that look like humans, and that will go into factories to produce. So I think China and India, they really need to look inward and develop internal consumers. And
there's one thing you said, Vix. There's one thing you said, that America is disengaging from the world.
Yeah.
Can I ask a pointed question, because you're sitting there, right? And okay, a particular state in America. Where do you see, is America disengaging from the world, or is there a particular political establishment that is helping that, and the most of America doesn't want to?
No, I think at least, and Mix, I think I do understand that people will have different perspectives, but my perspective on this is, if you see the policies that Trump put in place to disengage from China, tariffs and all that, when Biden came into power, he kept those in place. It's not like he came in and he removed all that. So Biden policies are actually a continuation of Trump's policies of disengagement, and it would make sense, because America doesn't need oil anymore, and why should it engage with the rest of the world? And like in any statistical distribution, there are 30% of Americans who can't do high IQ jobs sitting on in front of computers. They need to work in factories producing stuff. That's just statistical distribution, and these people, they need jobs.
Well, the good thing about that is that whatever mechanization could take away jobs or relocate jobs, I think that's been done. And from what we were discussing earlier, I think it's your California part of America that needs to be worried more than the Texas or Arkansas part of America.
Sure, I think the mechanization has already been done, but I think once we are able to put these digital brains that we have made in the last 2 years into robots that have legs and hands and eyes and ears, that will lead to a second level of mechanization. Just imagine, like there are multiple startups within walking distance of where I am right now, working on bipedal robots. Just imagine, for $40,000, you'll be able to buy a robot which would do like a household help around your house. It will cook for you, clean for you. And I think that is possible within the next 5 years. $40,000 for a household help in America. And I think those robots will go into factories and further bring down cost of production. So I was in India last month, not last month, actually in December. And what I really liked was the Indian government giving, like, say 5,000 rupees or so to every Indian citizen in villages. I think the impulse is correct, that you have to have internal market. You have to have internal consumers. I think I really like that impulse. I think that's the way to go.
Is that I'm not very aware of that 5,000 rupee thing. Is that like a universal basic income concept, the UBI thing, or is it something different?
It's basically to the farmers. It's 6,000 rupees a year, going to every farmer, irrespective of their crops being successful or unsuccessful.
So that's the UBI concept, right?
In a way, yes, but to a very targeted audience.
Right. So this is UBI for certain professions and certain type of jobs. It's not UBI for anyone below a particular income level.
No, not yet. But basically, there are various experiments happening around UBI globally as well. Uh, there are experiments happening in Africa providing UBI to entire villages, and there are variations where they say that, okay, is this committed to you for 2 years or whether it's committed to you for 12 years and so on. And they've been studying the impact of that. So yeah, we'll see a lot of that as well come alive in the next year or two. So, and there are a lot of interesting insights that are getting generated. So we have seen that if UBI is committed, for example, for a 12-year period, people are even securitizing that and starting new businesses. So very ground level innovation happening in that.
Chow, can you explain before I was your classmate? If somebody told me they're securitizing their UBI and starting a new business, I would think, like, what gobbledygook is he talking about? So for a lot of our audience, can you explain that?
So essentially, what it's doing is, if I have a fixed amount, let's say, so what's happening in this village in Africa is that they have committed $50 a month to every individual in the village, and it's for a 2-year period or a 12-year period. So when it's for a 12-year period, people are saying that, okay, I have this stream of cash flows coming in. Can I convert that to a large upfront cash flow right away, which is then repaid over this period, and start a business with that larger upfront cash flow?
Perfect, perfect. So that's what you would call securitization, correct? Perfect.
Yeah.
I have to say that with the current state of the equity markets, and the moment you mention the word securitization, it reminds me of 2006 and 7 days, which resulted in 2008.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and Mix, do you want to share your story how you ended up going to London Business School in 2008, right?
2008, yeah, 2008. That is why I so distinctly remember Lehman Brothers, because I landed after using pretty much all my savings that I had done after my IIM days. Uh, and I landed up at LBS paying full fees for a full-time program. Uh, well, at that time, it was just under £50,000. And I think it's about double of that, or just under double of that now. Uh, Maybe 80 or 90. But the big difference in cost was the cost of living in London, which it still is, but the gap has kind of narrowed now. But back in 2008, that gap was huge, living in Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore versus the cost of living in London was huge. And well, you can do as much of cost saving as possible, but the cost is going to be, for a like for like, is going to be about 10 times. That was my estimate at that time, about 10 times. The PPP figures that people used to say at that time was McDonald's price index and all that, and I used to look at those and laugh, because what I paid in London for a reasonably like for like. It doesn't have to be brand for brand, right? Because there are Indian brands, and you don't have to eat at McDonald's. You can eat cheap, greasy food at other places in India. It doesn't have to be McDonald's. So I think even that index doesn't hold. It has to take into account certain contexts. So my estimate was about a 10 times price increase of cost of living that I was undergoing. But yeah, I landed in London with that paying full fees for a full-time MBA program. But 3 weeks later, Lehman crashed. And then the rest is history. And we've all, most of us have gone through that. In India, that crash came a bit later, in my opinion. I will. I'll give you just one point of comparison fact. So when we came in, we had like an induction program. And an induction program, everyone wrote what they want to do after their MBA program. You know, those kind of things that this is what I want to be, this is the sector I want to be, my ideal job, my number two job, and that kind of thing. And within the induction program, at the end, they showed us what our batchmates and classmates want to be in. So this is August 2008, where in a batch at that time, now it's much higher, but we had a batch of just under 400 people for the full-time MBA. And about one third of those wanted to be in private equity. About one third of those wanted to be in investment banking. And a large part of the balance one third wanted to be in consulting or something similar. So that left about 15 or 20%, which was spread across like 40 different things. With entrepreneurship being probably the biggest of the others. My choice was private equity. And that was one of the core things that I thought I would be able to do. But at that same time, when I went personally, I was like, since I was going from being a consultant, I was like, okay, I've got a backstop. As they say, yeah. I mean, I can always be a consultant. So what's the downside in that sense? People do an MBA to become a consultant usually, and I came from being a consultant, so there was a backstop for me. But now here's the comparator. They did that at the end of the first year, and the end of the first year was about in May 2009. May 2009. It was post Lehman and post the first 6 months of Lehman reaction and all the dominoes starting to fall. And the intent, having been already based on the summer internship hiring and everything, was much lower. I don't remember the exact numbers. What I do know is at the end, the facts are how many people went into what sectors, and all these are publicly available on the LBS website, reports who went into which sectors, and that was my source too. Is I think about three or four people out of a batch of 400 went into private equity or venture capital. I was lucky to be one of those three or four. About, I think about 20 or 30, which is about 5 to 8% people went into investment banking. Probably a similar number in consulting. What that means is about less than 20% people went into sectors which 80% or 90% people had indicated were their main sectors why they are coming to do an MBA and what their post MBA career is. But that is what changed. Now, a lot of this is like, might seem like there's a huge downside to it and all that. And maybe in the short term there was. But the one big upside that I took from that, entrepreneurship was in an also ran. It was the biggest of the also ran sectors, but it was an also ran sector that people came in to do an MBA. A lot of our batch went into entrepreneurship, and sometimes, like in Hindi, they say "Majboori ka naam Mahatma Gandhi," right? It it was because of that, and maybe it was spurred by that. But and many of them have already made big exits. Some of them didn't work out. They went to their second startup. That didn't work out. Went to the third startup. Then they made that exit. But over the last 15 odd years that I remember, many of them have made awesome exits. And that, I think, was in some ways, I would say, the start of our batch of LBS made true by uh, by um, um, by Lehman, or securitization as our starting point.
Time frame that you're talking about, that was really interesting with me as well. we had just acquired a company, a very highly leveraged buyout, and we are looking to go public to kind of retire part of the debt and become a normal debt equity mix. And just as we finished our creating our road shows and everything, the Lehman crisis hit the market, and as everyone knows, the markets totally froze. So the great markets froze. The uh, IPO market obviously had zero probability of actually moving forward, and created a very strange situation for us because not only were we not able to go public, some of our clients went bankrupt and further deteriorated the cash flows for us. So, very troubled times, but very interesting experiences as well at that time.
Yeah, Chow, I think you having lived through that, acquiring a company, highly leveraged buyout, and doing a roadshow, that not working out. Hats off to you, Chow. I think that was just excellent. We were talking about purchasing power parity, so I wanted to mention this. On December 15th, I took a flight from Delhi to San Francisco, and I was in Jammu, so I took a train from Jammu to Delhi, and then in Delhi railway station, I went to the metro, which was wonderful. Took metro to the airport. But while I was going from the Delhi railway station to the metro, transferring to metro, I walked around and I saw paratha ka cart. Literally a guy on cart selling paratha. And he said, मैंने बोला कितने रुपए में पराठे? He said 20 रुपए में एक, 30 रुपए में दो. तो मैंने सोचा कि देख केडिया 15 घंटे की फ्लाइट में जा रहा है, अगर दो पराठे खाए ना तो बाथरूम में बिताएगा 15 घंटे. तो मैं सोचा नहीं खाता हूँ. सोचा यार पराठा तो खाना ही पड़ेगा यार. It was smelling so nice. So I 20 रुपए दिए, एक पराठा खाया. बट उसने सब्जी भी दी उसके संग. मैंने कहा कि मैं सब्जी नहीं लूंगा, मैं सिर्फ अचार के संग खाऊंगा. तो पराठा अच्छा ना ये. Got on the flight, came here. अगर तुम लोगों को टाइम मिले तो गूगल दिस रेस्टोरेंट कॉल्ड जरीन, ZAREEN. तो पैलो आल्टो का मोस्ट फेमस इंडियन पाकिस्तानी फूड है. A worse paratha than what I had outside the Delhi railway station for 20 rupees. I had it after I arrived here 3 days ago. My daughter was with me for $5, which is like 400 rupees, right? And I was like craving for that Delhi paratha. So, अगर आप purchasing power parity की बात करो तो that paratha is 20 rupees versus 400 rupees, $5, yeah, 80 multiplied by 400 rupees.
I don't think, Vix, you should talk about how expensive US, including especially California, is when you compare it to London on food. I mean, maybe there are other things, but generally America, every time I've been there, is so cheap. It feels cheap.
अच्छा, America feels cheap compared to London.
It feels cheap compared to London, and I've heard viewpoints to the contrary also. And maybe I've not been to the US in the last 4 or 5 years, even once. When was the last time? Yeah, probably 4 years ago. My last visit to the US, and even then it felt cheap compared to London. See, I'm comparing to London. Bear in mind, there's been inflation everywhere, whether it's 4% or 7%, and but US has always felt cheap to me. And that brings me to the point. Yeah.
तेरे लंदन में पराठा कितने में मिलता है? They have a McDonald's burger index, right?
Nearly
We will make it, but नहीं तेरे घर पे नहीं, घर के बाहर. घर पे तो तू तो नहीं बनाएगा. तो
actually I don't eat paratha outside my house because I don't like the ones that are made here. But if I think about it, जन पराठा actually वो 2 parathas plate होती है, उसके साथ सब्जी and दही और वो सब मिलता है. It will be about 8 pounds. And if you and this, I'm talking about zone 5. If I go to central London, which is probably a better comparison to your whatever Silicon Valley, Manhattan and all that, central London अगर आप जाओगे तो 20 pounds से कम नहीं मिलेगा. And then you go to a higher level restaurant, then it's unlimited.
Babata, for those of us like I've been to London once, I think back in the year 2000. So it's been 23 years, and I was there for I think 2 days. What is this zone concept? Zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 concentric circles, again. The outer
Kind
go
of,
from
kind
down.
of. It's
Okay.
not exactly concentric circles. It is
Okay.
kind of. It's supposed to be like that, where the central London is zone 1,
Acha.
and then you keep going, and what that does is it's mainly for the tube cost.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So I don't know
got it.
about
Yeah.
I don't
Same
know
यहाँ
about
पे भी. हाँ.
SF और
हाँ,
SJ,
हाँ.
but न्यूयॉर्क में जैसे होता है कि वो ट्यूब कॉस्ट के लिए.
हाँ, 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 हाँ. तो
So I'm
हमारे
in
यहाँ पे
zone
भी
5.
हाँ.
I'm very happy I'm in zone 5. It also depends. You can on things like where you can afford a house which is
Yes.
detached with a
Yeah,
garden,
yeah.
with this
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that,
yeah.
versus
Acha, for the
in central
viewers,
London, if I
everybody
were
has to
have
look
a
at.
detached house with a
No, no.
garden, I'll be
हाँ.
honest. I'll have to be like an Ambani or someone like that.
Acha. Yeah, but Mix, we had the fortune to look at your conservatory when we still had lights 30 minutes before the show started. And
Yeah.
believe me, it looked like Ambani's conservatory. I loved it.
No, you've probably not seen Ambani's conservatory, have you?
Chao, Bangalore में what's happening with the metro in Bangalore यार? कब करोगे metro complete and all that? Chao, mute पे.
Yeah, sorry about that. The metro has been functional on various routes. Two of the routes have been live. They are seeing a huge surge in viewership. Number of other routes are in various stages of completion. So the expectation is that in another 3-4 years, the entire network should be in place.
Okay.
But the routes which are functional have seen a very huge impact in how people have increased mobility for work.
Nice.
One of the other things which has happened recently in Bangalore, especially in the last election, is that they have made public transport, especially the bus service, free for women in the state.
Oh, nice.
So, you just need to show your ID card with a Karnataka address, and you can travel for free.
Only bus service or also metro?
Bus service.
Not the metros though.
Yeah. The metro is a public-private partnership entity.
Okay.
But the bus service is entirely state government owned.
Nice.
And it has resulted in so much additional mobility, so much additional economic
Nice.
activity.
So nice. Generally, what is the feel that you get in Bangalore? Do you get the feel that कि government का actually मन है कुछ करने का कि and it's just it takes time to put any big project in play, right? Or you get the feel that the government is checked out.
Intent is there, obviously.
Intent is there.
Intent is there. There's a lot of balance which is being made in terms of development in Bangalore and in versus rest of the state. So we need to balance that because a lot of constituencies are outside Bangalore. So,
Yeah. When I was in India, I got together with Saurabh Singh, and I think back in the year 2000, Saurabh got a job from campus for $140,000 a year, or 140,000 pounds, like some huge, crazy sum of money,
Right.
And he shared his story with me that he worked in London and then he decided to go back to India to spend time with his father, who was very sick, and now he's running one of the biggest pharmaceutical manufacturing factory/operation in Kolkata. So I think people like Saurabh Singh, people like Saurabh Mukherjee, one of our batchmates who started from IBM, went on, was working at IBM, came to campus, did the PGP, went on to work at Boston Consulting Group, one of the best in the world, then came back to the campus, did his PhD, became a professor, and now literally runs most of IIM Bangalore, I think, and just today, like hearing about, I never knew what the zone system in London is, and getting to know Mix again, getting to know Chow again, and getting to understand the insider perspective on Bangalore. And I think this has been the highlight of my day. I think obviously we'll learn from this first episode. We will go back and we'll see. I think there were some terms used that a lot of our youngsters won't understand, like the Lehman crisis. They'll say, "Kaun sa Lehman or kaun sa crisis," right? 2008. So we should tell all the bacha log that for people who have lived through 2008, especially Mix when he was at London Business School with his all his money invested into it, right? And like you landed in London, and then the whole sector that made London collapses, right? Or Chow, who was in New York at that time, just had purchased a company in a debt leverage buyout. And again, I was thinking कि बच्चा लोग को तो ये भी नहीं पता होगा कि debt leverage buyout क्या होता है. So basically, he borrowed a ton of money to go and buy a company, expecting कि उस company को stock market में ले जाएंगे, equity में जो पैसा raise करेंगे, वो debt को वापस कर देंगे. And then realizing,
why do you think debt? See, people might not know Lehman or anything of that crisis, but debt leverage will live on. It will create even more crisis every few years.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm not saying, because I've been there, done that. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying excess of debt leverage is bad.
Yeah,
and you can extrapolate that कि excess of anything is bad.
Yeah. नहीं, Mix में ऐसा सोचा था ना कि a lot of our viewers would be, जैसे मैं कॉलेज में था, and just for our viewers information, I think Chow to BITS पिलाने का है ना?
नहीं, IIT Delhi.
IIT Delhi. Mix to
Delhi
University.
So are we? Delhi University. So are we saying that all three of us, which we are discovering just now, came from Delhi and on the university case, despite different sources?
Yes, and I was in Delhi from 1995 to 98. Chow, when were you in Delhi?
I was in Delhi from 91 to 98.
Okay, and Mix too?
I was in Delhi from being born to, I think I'm still in Delhi in my mind.
Sure. But the interesting thing is कि 1995 to 98 माने क्लास 12 के बाद के जो 3 साल 4 साल होते हैं, हम तीनों दिल्ली में थे और
of course हम तब नहीं मिले. हम IMB में मिले, बट तब भी हम वो दिल्ली गैंग की तरह से नहीं मिले.
दिल्ली गैंग की तरह हम कभी नहीं रहे.
Right, because वो छोटे मोटे वो रीजनल गैंग्स हर इंस्टीट्यूट में होते हैं, IM में भी होते हैं, डिफरेंट इंस्टीट्यूट्स में होते हैं, बट फाइनली इट्स अबाउट so many other things that when we meet, whether it's in IIMs or any other institute, it's like you get common interests.
Yes. And मैं debt leverage buyout के लिए इसलिए बोल रहा था ना कि imagine us in 1995 to 1998 before we entered IIM, I had no idea what the word debt leverage buyout means. And I think अगर मैंने if I hear that, I'm like, क्या बात कर रहे हैं यार ये लोग. तो so basically चाव ने 200-300 करोड़ रुपए का लोन लिया और जाके कंपनी खरीद ली. तो बेसिकली वो बीच में बैठा एक आदमी से पैसा उधार लेके दूसरी की कंपनी खरीद रहा है. तो कहता है मैं इस कंपनी को नैस्डैक में लिस्ट कराऊंगा, वहां से जो पैसे आएंगे इक्विटी के, उससे मैं डेट वालों को पैसा दे दूंगा. द होल थिंग कोलैप्स बिकॉज ऑफ लेमन. तो it's interesting how much value IIM education ने हम लोग को दिया है, because कौन सोच सकता था कि Chow would be doing debt leverage buyouts? कौन सोच सकता था कि Miggs, जो कि मजाक उड़ा रहा था कि people who went to do venture capital interview will become the investor guy, will become a private equity guy? कौन सोच सकता था? कौन सोच सकता था कि a person who grew up in a lower middle class in Calcutta without electricity will be sitting in Palo Alto, right? Nobody could have imagined this. Nobody could have imagined the paths that we took. And I think we owe a lot of gratitude to our education at IIM, the relationships we formed. And
absolutely, I have to say that. In terms of education, I think, and I keep telling my kids, both my kids are educated in London in some of the top schools. and I keep telling them that you can't beat my education. Of course, I am like, of course, everyone thinks their education was better than the others, but I think they're getting it too easy on their plate.
Yes.
And what IIM taught us was, whether it's what was it called, the placement season, milk round, or whatever. What that taught us is your best friends are your enemies, as well as your enemies are your best friends. So just balance that out. If anyone remembers waiting outside an interview room,
Yes. Makes such an interesting experience.
and you know that that company is taking two people, and there are
Yes.
three of your friends sitting outside,
Yes.
what are those feelings that you've ever had about your two closest friends who are sitting
Yeah.
out and you're competing with them? That
Yeah,
is what IIM taught us, how to balance it out.
I've not looked at the data on it, but I think IIMs might be the institute in the world with the ratio of accepted divided by applicants. That ratio must be the smallest at IIMs. For like a million applicants, you accept, in our batch it accepted 160 people. I don't like, यार I can literally look at Stanford University from my window. और यहाँ सब कहते हैं स्टैनफोर्ड में एडमिशन लेना कितना डिफिकल्ट है 3% एक्सेप्टेंस रेट है क्या व्हाट 3% acceptance rate? Are you crazy? How can it be difficult to get accepted? Out of 100 applicants, going to choose 3? Because in what we saw at IIMs was a million applicants and you get accepted 160 people out of that. So I think
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. See, the thing is also about population, the acceptance rate.
Yes.
And then in some ways, if I might say, is who are the serious applicants and who are the less serious applicants.
Yes.
And partly in India, you have to adjust for the low application fee thing.
Yes.
You know, 100 रुपए दो तो कोई भी applicant हो जाता है. Versus यहाँ पर है, and recently we went through like the Eton and Harrow school process for my son.
How old is he?
Oh, he's
okay, next. You will be known as the guy who did remember the age of his son.
I was thinking whether I should say 11 or 12.
If you didn't remember the age of the son, I'm going to show this podcast to your son.
Totally. So he's gotten in, and the thing is that all these top level schools, they have a very low acceptance rate. In England, a low acceptance rate is like 20%.
Wow.
And the reason for that is the acceptance rate, people who don't think they have a chance, they just don't apply.
Yeah.
Right? Because your application fee, वो ये करने के लिए, वो करने के लिए, वो they will total up to a few £1,000s.
Okay.
And then you're not playing like lottery.
Yeah.
कि 2 रुपए की टिकट ले ली, लॉटरी की टिकट.
Yeah. No, I do agree.
In some ways, I think India में एक वो भी है.
क्या कह रहा था चाऊ?
No, I'm saying to Mick's point, it's serious money. I mean, if it's like £1,000, it's not something which everyone will go for.
Yeah.
So what I've seen, so we work a lot with students who are appearing for high stakes competitive exams, right? And if you look at the acceptance rates for medical colleges in India, they're about, so this year about 18 or 19 lakh students appeared for the medical entrance exam, and the total number of seats across all medical colleges put together is less than 1 lakh. Among the top medical colleges, of course, you can imagine what the acceptance rate would be, but it's a single exam for all colleges. You still have that many students who get left out.
Yeah, I agree, Chap. You know, guys, as we come to the end of the show, we want to keep it less than an hour. So as we come to the end of the show, I would like to leave the viewers with this thought, okay? when I grew up, when I was in high school, when I was in Shriram College, and when I was at IIM Bangalore, I wanted to come to Palo Alto. This is where I wanted to be. And at that age, I thought Americans are special. I thought people in Palo Alto are special. They're able to create companies like Google, Facebook, WhatsApp because they're special. I've lived here for 23 years now, and I've realized is that they are not special. They are just like us in Bangalore. The only thing that is different is the attitude that they bring to embrace failure, the attitude that they bring to experiment. And I hope that with this podcast, we can be part of that change in India. As I traveled from Jammu to Delhi on train on 14th December, I saw so much poverty. That is so changeable. The people here are not special. The people here are just like the people in India. It's just the attitude. It's just a little bit of attitude difference that's needed. And I think, I was telling to Mix that it's us guys from IIM that run India now. Just imagine we have between the four ABCL, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, and Lucknow. The country has produced 20,000 MBAs, right? Who graduated before, say, 2000, right? 20,000 MBAs who graduated 2000. And these 20,000 people are the middle and senior management in India. And I've been proven completely wrong. I thought people in Palo Alto were special. I thought people in California, America were special. But the conclusion I have is that no. The guy in Jammu was as smart as the guy in Palo Alto. It's just a difference in attitude, different in government policies, a difference in embracing capitalism. And I hope that with this show, we can be the change agent in our society,
Totally, Vix. I think as a closing note, I will also say that people in India are also realizing that, which is where we see from a statistical figures of the number of unicorns coming out of India versus relocating a great startup into Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So there's that one thing. But more than that, no one is special. It's about attitude. And I really liked what you said, what you're teaching your kid is it's about attitude. It's not about what you know.
Yeah.
Because you can know. And especially as we progress, compared to where we grew up, as we progress into a available knowledge economy, things are available. How do you utilize them?
Yes.
That is most important. And how do you utilize them depends on what do you think you want to do. And I really like that attitude thing.
Yeah.
Just adding to that, I think there's a very famous saying, I forget who stated it first, but it says that about 65% of the jobs that the current students will end up doing, they have not even been created yet. They don't exist yet. So you can't really train for them. What you can train for is learnability, attitude, and adaptability. So as things evolve, how do you keep yourself relevant and kind of keep progressing in the learning? That's what really will make all the difference.
Yeah, well said, Chow. I think 65% of jobs have not even been invented yet. So it's going to come down to your attitude, your willingness to embrace failure, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I'll share this anecdote. So I opted out of placements from IIM Bangalore. So I got a call
I totally remember that, Vix. I totally remember that.
Okay, Mix, you do? Okay, good. So I got a call from MMG, the same guys who hired Saurabh in my hostel room. I've never told this story publicly. तो हमारे मैं ग्राउंड फ्लोर में नहीं था, मैं फर्स्ट फ्लोर में था और फर्स्ट फ्लोर में एक ही फ़ोन था उस समय, और उस समय सेल फोन्स तो नहीं थे, 1990 मतलब इंडिया में थे पर हम लोग के पास नहीं थे किसी के पास, और ये 2000 की बात है, प्लेसमेंट के टाइम.
इंडिया
फोन
में भी
बजा।
अंबानीज टाइप्स के पास थे उस टाइम पे
नहीं यार,
99
1996-97 में फोन आ गए थे, मोटोरोला वाले फ्लिप फोन।
ओके
तो किसी ने चलाया कि इंडिया फोन है। मैं अपने कमरे में बैठा, हेलो, दिस इज XYZ फ्रॉम मिचेल मैडिसन, you dropped out of placement, we really want you and it makes us want you more. Tell you this, growing up in a lower middle class family in India, and I'm very proud of it for everything that my family has given me, and but it was a fact. For 11 months we didn't have electricity at home, and from then to say ki we'll give you $140,000 a year, do you want the job? Being able to say, you know, I want to do my startup, I think I'm really glad that my IIM Bangalore education gave me that confidence that no, I will be able to make it. And I think the other thing I like to leave the youngsters behind with is you will be able to make it. Just show up to work every day, put in your best, and you will be surprised where you reach.
I think that's the great summary.